Punya, is your headset volume okay?
Maybe turn it down a little bit.
How about that?
Yep.
Or all you hear is crickets?
Goodness. Yeah, actually, you are loud, Sean, today.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
What's new?
Sorry. Geez. I don't know.
And I wasn't talking about the microphone.
yeah, exactly. You know. Shoot, we're recording. Okay.
I'm like, loud. My microphone's on level 1.
Yeah.
And this is Punya, you're in the hot seat here, but you also have like the deck, and suddenly I feel this like strange
lack of control.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going like, oh no,
I wouldn't know what to do with it. But nothing good.
Is this one? Definitely. Sean just gone. So Punya, what should we talk about?
Oh, jeez, guys.
Now that he's not,
come on,
let's talk about Sean.
Right?
Come on, guys. You said you were going to do this. No. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess we started.
I guess we're going. I do wonder too. We all like. Again, we're constantly fiddling with the arrangement and how we're sitting in this room. It also is going to be louder because your voices, we're picking up each other's.
I know, we're a little
too.
Bit closer. Yes.
Does anybody else need a headset?
No, I think we're good.
We're good. Okay. Yes. Well, awesome. Well, welcome to Modem Futura. Punya, it's so good to have you back. Which is I think, a huge testament, Andrew. He said yes to coming back.
Well, it's because he didn't listen to the previous episode.
No, I don't know. I did listen to clips of it, but that feels weird listening to yourself.
Yeah.
But I had so much fun there during recording it. So that's for other people to deal with. Whatever stuff comes out of my mouth, you've got to listen to it. That's your problem. I don't get to listen to it.
That's great.
But I had a blast just hanging out with you.
We did as well.
So it was fun.
So it's great to have you back.
Of course.
Absolute blast. I have one little thing we can talk about for a cold open, then we can get started. Because I know when we have guests, I don't like to keep people waiting and guessing. Yeah. Although by now everybody knows who Punya is. So, so last time you were here, Punya, you had done me a tremendous favor and asked about the name of Modem Futura, where that came from, and also the squawk that's in the intro that people are going to hear momentarily.
I know where you're going with this.
You want to give it? You want to?
No. Go ahead. I'm not going to steal your thunder.
It was just announced. AOL has formally, after
37 years,
something like that, has finally announced that on September 30th, 2025, the service associated in the software for AOL Dialer and AOL Shield browser are going, which means dial-up internet is having its last gasp.
And like the rest of the world, I read that and thought, is it still a thing?
that was my response. That was honestly my response. Like, oh, this still exists?
It's still a thing.
But my second thought was, I've got to have one more listen before it goes. Where do I get my dial-up just so I can experience that 56K?
30 seconds, Sean will kick it off.
I was going to say, if you and people who listen have to understand how much I had to scrutinize which part of the handshake goes into that, because it's long actually. But it's phenomenal, and so and I will put some links in the show notes because there is such a very strong nostalgic emotion for me, I guess, when you hear these, because that was my childhood. This was my punk era of trying to figure out how to maximize all these speeds with a 56K dial-up. And when you'd hear that squawk, and then someone would pick up the phone, and you're like, "Mom, no, I'm downloading something right now." But yeah, it's come to an era. But yeah, I don't know who is still on it, but I would imagine somewhere there's probably, and this is always a thing.
I saw some figures from a few years ago where it was in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it was around about the 100,000. People.
And I wonder how many legacy military, government, or otherwise, you know what I mean? These things are well, state of the art. We'll bury this box in the Siberia,
some basement office in the Pentagon where you still have the modem.
I know.
Nobody has updated yet. And they're suddenly going to wake up with a cold sweat.
That's right. Well, it's like you find these stories all the time that I find hilarious, where you're like, oh wait, something. Was it the Social Security office was still using COBOL or something like that, where you're like, wait, what? And we'll see.
This is going to be the thing that Doge over missed. They've cleared out everything else in government. They forgot about that 56K modem connected to AOL.
In a closet somewhere that is probably running a critical piece of infrastructure for something. And we will learn about it after September 30th.
Y2K 2025 version.
Yes. See, everyone was prepared for that. They weren't prepared for the AOL shutdown of dial-up. But if anyone has an AOL CD and you've got some minutes left on it, I mean, now is your time to burn them, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Man, they were shipping those out.
You could.
I missed that because I wasn't in the US. I was in the UK at the time.
You literally get like one in the mail every day.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember this apartment that we were living in when we first moved to East Lansing. I started sticking those CDs up on the wall as just like a decoration.
Right.
And this entire wall was pretty much full.
Yeah. It was, I mean, you would be curious if there was ever a way to find out like how much money they spent like sending that out. But I mean, I feel like every household that had a U.S. mailing address in the late 80s to through the mid to late 90s and even beyond, probably got at least once every month for sure. If not every week. I mean, they used to just be like a stack. And, then there was this original thing where you're like, well, if they were rewritable, could you just burn them over again? And it's like, no, just junk.
So the funny thing is, did you have an AOL account?
No, I didn't.
See, I've never had an AOL account.
Same here. Yes.
So these would come by, but I was part of the university when the email.
Right. Why would you? Yes. Yeah.
No, I did dial up and all of that, but never AOL.
Same here. I use different services.
Well, see, and we had dial up through because it's the same sort of situation as my parents through the university. We had so that was a service that the university offered to faculty, staff, and students was dial up through the university. Which I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the name of it? I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, I'm trying to remember what it was called, but that's what we did. So you were like, I don't even need this thing. Yeah. But I remember, AOL Messenger. That was the hotness of my generation. Of like, that's how all of us kids, that's how we connected. That's how we, that's how we got in trouble.
End of an era. I'm gonna have to dig out a 56K modem now just to experience it one last time.
I know. Well, and it's like, and I think they're still selling them.
Oh, like seriously?
Like you can still find them. Yeah, and I don't know.
Worse and worse.
I don't know.
But see, I remember this is back in the 1990s. So I went through the whole thing from the sort of the modems just over 2000 baud and so those first services to the incredible excitement when 56K technology came along and the world changed and everybody was out there buying the modems.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because if people for people who either are too young to know even what we're talking about, or we're just like, huh? What's that? What was interesting too is like the 56K modem was in some ways like it was a huge technological leap over the 33.6 kbps version. But that's like the physical limit of the data transfer, which if you used it, you knew because you never got that. You never got 56.
I know.
You always got 30, 40, 50, maybe 50.
Here is my great memory from grad school. So I was at Urbana-Champaign and my wife was going to school in Iowa State. And we didn't have a car, so I'd have to take Greyhound bus to Chicago, from Chicago to somewhere, and so end up in Ames, Iowa. But I was still doing my assistantship. And so I was expected to continue working my 20 hours a week, but it made no sense to go there for a day because it would take me 2 days to go and come back. So I would carry with me a Mac SE.
Yes. Oh, wow.
If you've ever been in Greyhound in Chicago station,
with one of the boxes,
with a massive box, that was my sort of portable computer.
Your version of the laptop.
And then I would go over to her apartment and I would open up my Mac SE and I would plug in the modem and it would dial up to Urbana-Champaign. And that was the time when MCI had friends and family, so you could call 5 numbers.
You were the original road warrior.
And I'm like, that was a thing. Right? I mean, that's something I did, not just once, multiple times. And now I think about it.
And so I'll throw one out there for the younger audience. That would be the equivalent of carrying like a 24-inch iMac around in a briefcase. Well, a briefcase, a gigantic
it was a
cargo box. And then set a full-on desktop computer, just taking it around with you. I love that.
That's impressive.
Dedication.
Been there, done that.
Right.
Well, it's like you got to get paid. You got to
work.
Maintain your family.
That's right. You've got to do what you've got to do. Yes.
Necessity drives, right? You're like, this is what it's going to take.
Okay, nostalgia break over.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was a great way to kind of warm us up. And so if you're sitting there going, I just really don't know what they're talking about, we'll take a break in just 1 second and listen into our introduction music because you will hear the beginning of the handshake of a 56K modem. I think it's the V90. It's a Broadcom chip. You'll hear it and you'll love it. And now it means a little bit more because after September 30th, it's gone. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Initializing waveform.
Modulating signals for transmission.
exploring the possible, probable, and preferable futures.
Welcome to Modem Futura. All right. Well, welcome to Modem Futura. I'm Sean Leahy, joined by my co-host extraordinaire,
Andrew Maynard.
And that means this is, again, Modem Futura, the show that... this happens to me so often. I'm like, that show, because my brain is already introducing you, Punya. But this is Modem Futura, the show that explores the intersection of technology, society, and the possible, probable, and preferable futures. Asking deep questions like, what does it mean to be human in the future?
Without a 56K modem.
Without a 56K mode. And the reason my brain broke is because I am so thrilled to join us again, Punya Mishra. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
and
glad to be here.
Yes,
a lot of fun last time, and just don't do that whole introduction thing again.
Can I do it?
Do the first sentence. And
okay. So for those who don't know, Punya is the director of Innovative Learning Futures. Boy, I'm having a rough day today.
Yeah.
My goodness. Let me start that again. Punya Mishra is the director of Innovative Learning Futures at the Learning Engineering Institute and professor in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College here at ASU. How about that?
Perfect.
We'll leave it there. If I have anything longer, I'll just butcher it even more. So we'll just call that good.
That's why I asked for a shorter version.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for playing into my weaknesses. If nothing else, Punya, thank you for playing to my weakness. Yeah, I much appreciated. Well, so one, it's just phenomenal to have you back, Punya, because it's always a good conversation. But two, Andrew and I have been talking for a while. The last several episodes we've been going off because there's been just a little tiny bit of news around the whole AI industry as of late. In fact, I would say the last 30, maybe 40 days or so have been quite active with a whole bunch of releases. I mean, just at time of publication here, we had OpenAI drop agent mode, then they dropped study mode, then they dropped GPT-5.
And then
they sort of collapsed.
While doing that, they dropped the other two things that they had just dropped.
They rug pulled all the other stuff.
Right.
And quietly on the other, also in that sphere, you have Google's Notebook LLM doing a whole bunch of stuff with really kicking up aims in the educational space.
Yep.
And so we've been talking a lot about this thing kind of broadly, but I thought it would be really fun just to have you back here and just start kicking around some ideas around what does this all mean in the context as we're sort of education broadly, as we're thinking about these things, because it's been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing, I don't even know where to start, right? You know what I mean? And maybe start from the point that they don't get the point.
Yep.
Yeah. Right?
That's a great place to start.
And by they, you specifically mean these AI companies in the industry that support it, right?
And, there is this whole idea that, that learning is X or Y.
Right.
And to think that you can put this tool in there. Yes, the tool can be used for a broader purpose, but that broader purpose never gets defined, right?
Right.
And how it happens doesn't get defined.
Yep.
So I think that's what I feel like. If you look at, so I just recently wrote this blog post about study mode.
Mm-hmm.
And if you dig into study mode, it's effectively a prompt.
Yes.
Right. And then it is the marketing hype around it is like it is X and cognitive
finally.
And somebody a colleague recently forwarded me the prompt. It's a good prompt, but it's not a long prompt. You could put it in yourself.
Hundreds of people have already created GPTs of that nature since it was released. So for OpenAI to come out and say this is study mode and this is like what's going to change education was like how stupid do you think we are?
So actually I feel a little embarrassed now because I've just published a piece encouraging my colleagues to use study mode because it's useful. But I think that's the difference. If you approach it in the right way, it's useful, but it's not going to change anything.
So I just did read your piece. And what you are saying there is use it for this purpose.
Right.
Because that person coming in is going to be motivated to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So recently so this is a fun thing that I've done recently. So one of
many, I would say.
I'll be the judge if it was fun.
No. It is actually kind of, because it also makes the point that how this tool can also be used, right? So I am originally from India, but particularly from a state called Odisha.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was a very famous writer. And she has, I don't know how many columns and stories or whatever, but they're collected, most of it, not all of it, most of it is collected in 17 books.
Mm-hmm.
of which I can read only one, because that's the only one in English.
Interesting.
I can speak Odia fluently,
okay,
but I can't read and write it.
Mm-hmm.
So the other, and it's always been a dream of mine to be able to read my mother's writing and hopefully maybe even translate it.
Yep.
So that day I sat with Claude and I created this thing, which will then, so now I have a database of around 500,000 Odia words,
Okay.
which it spits out at me. And then I have to sort of turn to read the characters, and I have a little character map on the side. And I actually read the title of one of my mother's books, read the acknowledgements, and realized that I didn't know that those were dedicated to my kids.
Interesting.
Wow, that's
wow.
I'd never been able to read it. Wow. So this is something that AI let me do.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm not coming in saying like this is some technology that cannot help learning.
No.
Clearly, I am learning.
But you've got to use it in the right way.
But here's the thing. When I was working with Claude to develop it, Claude kept pushing things on me, saying, oh, I can give you like how many, a streak of how many you got correct. I can gamify this.
right.
And I was like, Claude,
I don't want that, man.
I am motivated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am deeply, deeply motivated at a level which is like deeply personal to me.
Yep.
I don't need that surface stuff. So this is the point I'm trying to make. Is that what's happening in a lot of the rhetoric around it is that we are looking at those surface things which are expected to motivate people and so on and so forth. Not recognizing
and missing the point. Yes.
That the motivation for learning needs to be deeper and more personal.
No, and
so that's, I think, in a long-winded way.
No. And so this resonates so deeply because one of the things that, I mean, and I'm not the education expert here. You are. You've spent your professional life studying this. But for me, it amazes me how many people make this mistake of assuming that people don't want to learn, therefore you've got to make it somehow exciting or enticing or gamify it. Right. Whereas the reality is that if you're motivated, you want to learn. It's in our DNA.
And so that's what I think educators do, good teachers do, is tap into those kinds of interests and passions and nascent things that you might just not even have a complete inkling of.
And it's the human connection.
Bring it up, right? Which I think is the critical piece in the educational thing. And I don't think that these tools can help in that, but they cannot transform it because it's not tapping into that foundational thing. Once you have an interest, now that I'm motivated to learn Odia, guess what? I don't need any other, it's always open on my laptop and every day
you need the machine to respond to you and your motivation rather than try and do something that you don't need.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, Punya, because I think, one of the things I think that you hit on too is something that we've talked about. In fact, even the episode that just dropped today, actually, that we were talking about, right, was pushing against this sort of like technological determinist solutions for these things, where it takes something like education, for example, and it's presented as, oh, we can mechanistically solve this transaction by, and
it's the transactional.
And it's the transactional piece, which you're like, right. At times, you do need a transactional element to transfer something from point to point or to do something or to facilitate something. But it's being, and again, this is kind of coming back to the broader critique. I think we're on I think we're recording episode 46, I think, which is, so it's like 40 some episodes long here of me railing against the hype. But that's exactly what we're seeing here, especially when you counter all like the backlash that has happened as well, is, these things are trying to essentially just wash away all of that humanistic element of being able to identify what makes you. What are the things that make you passionate about, and as an educator, right, that the nuanced, the reason it's sometimes referred to as an art form, right, is that some of that nuanced ability to read people and adapt on the fly as you were on stage to say, well, like, if I know that you're interested more like this, how can I kind of approach this topic, make a bridge for you, make a way that I can start to elicit that motivation, that excitement. These tools sort of cut that all out and are just like, here is a textbook gamified way of doing, and you're like, it's such a soulless transactional element.
And it strikes me there are two problems here. One is the problem of developers that fundamentally do not understand learning and education and pedagogy. They think they do, so they're coming up with a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
And there's a corollary to that. Many of these people were inherently motivated to learn whatever they learned. So they think that what worked for them
will work for everybody else. Yes.
You know?
Which any good teacher knows is not a good way to start. Yes.
But I think we see that model.
Second point.
I had a second point. I can't remember the second point. Oh, no. The second point was them assuming that you can fix education, that it's a problem to fix.
Yeah, it's an engineering problem.
Rather than a human journey, yes.
And I think that's, I don't know how many of you read Audrey Waters. I mean, she's awesome, right?
Yeah.
So
we had her on the Learning Futures show,
Yes,
it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Tear now with education and AI, and I love it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do I agree with everything she says? Not necessarily, but does she make me think about some of the deeper issues? Absolutely. So her thing today actually was around this focus on efficiency and administration,
right?
And that education can be something which needs to be made efficient. The question is efficient for whom, for what purpose?
Yep.
Like, does it have to, those are the kinds of questions which I think a lot of these things are, we're going to have this tutor for everybody, which is then going to make you learn faster.
Right.
Like, is that the goal? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
So I there's lots of issues and questions I think that come up here.
Yeah. And of course, so I've got to bring this in. So I feel really proud of this moment, bringing in John Dewey because because he's not part of my lexicon, but he is yours.
Oh, but all hail John Dewey.
But this is the question. It's always like, do we or don't we?
Yeah.
Right.
And
But learning from both of you,
do.
it strikes me more and more that we have got a century plus of understanding the nature of learning and how you create learning environments.
Absolutely.
And what learning means and to what purpose and how it actually elevates people. And it seems that most of the people making decisions now, whether it's these tech developers or tech implementers, even in universities, they are not aware of that history. They don't understand the landscape.
Yeah. Education is one of those things, and graphic design is another one, both fields that I dabble in, where everybody has an opinion.
Right, yes.
Because they went to school.
They've been to school, so they're an expert.
They've drawn something.
Right,
Right.
So I think that does get in the way because people think that they know. And again, I'm not saying that there is some deeply specialized knowledge that people who are in
but there are things, which is why I brought up John Dewey, because you've got a way of thinking and a framework there, which is still really powerful.
It is very powerful.
And I'll just to kind of pull that back, so if people are like, John Dewey, what are you guys talking about? Why are you so excited about it? And Punya, do you remember like the Four Natural Impulses came 1890, something like that?
No, I'm guessing more like 1920s.
1920. Okay. Right in there. So I mean, John Dewey, one of the things that so famous for essentially establishing that there are 4 natural impulses for learning. So learning, not schooling or whatever. So this is across the idea here is that these are inherent impulses for all humans, regardless of age, regardless of where you're born or how you're born. And they are inquiry, construction, communication, and expression. So through these things, right, we inquire about the world around us. That's a natural thing. Construction, we build, we make things. These are physical and digital and constructs of our mind. Communication, we share them, we talk to people, we express these things. And then that's the final one is expression, the identity of self being put into the things that we are making, doing, and creating. That these, and those, you can go much deeper into all these things, but that those are fundamentally the natural impulses that we all carry with us. And it feels like at many levels, these sort of technical solutions are people who have gone, impressive. They have advanced degrees. They've gone through school, never once having learned of these or know of them, and then are prescribing a technical solution that washes these away, when the opposite would be to really reach, in my opinion, right, to really reach this powerful, transformative element of using AI tools in education is using those tools to enhance these 4 impulses. How do you use, I mean, just literally phrase that question. How do you use AI to boost your inquiry? How do you use it to boost your construction, your communication, your expression, et cetera? Not thinking just using these tools will somehow expedite my learning process.
Like inject that stuff into your brain.
I think inquiry, for instance, is a very critical one, because one way of thinking about, a chatbot or a tutor is helping in inquiry. No, that's not what Dewey is talking about, right? Inquiry is like you are asked, it's coming from within you.
Right, yes.
It's
You're not being
a
prompted.
predetermined curriculum that somebody has decided you should know. And then this bot is helping answer your questions, right?
And am I right in saying that his thinking sort of fed into the Montessori approaches and others, which is all about that? It's sort of...
And actually, I think the other big thing for me that I take away from Dewey is all his sort of whole description of what is an educative experience. And people like Donald Sean and all have sort of built on that work about that, and one of the lovely things Dewey talks about is that an experience there is like an arc to an experience. And that just because all learning happens through experience doesn't mean all experiences are equally educative.
Right.
I think that's a really powerful thing, right?
Yes.
And to think about what are the elements that make experiences educative. Sometimes it is the social. Sometimes it is just the aha of the joy of finding out. Sometimes it is that, I could put my own. I mean, we were talking just before the show about Einstein's papers in 1903.
That's right. Yes.
Those are as much artistic creations as their scientific creations.
Exactly,
there is an aesthetic that Einstein brings to it that actually gets the whole world to follow him, right? To see the world through that lens of what does it mean to sit on a wave of light?
Right.
Does it even wave anymore? What does it, right? Now that. So there's an aesthetic there. There's a sense of inquiry there. There's a building theory. I mean, so all four of those things you see are playing out there.
Yeah. So going back to artificial intelligence. So I think even with this conversation, you can see if you've got the foundations, if you understand how people work and how people learn, you could build AI systems around that and leverage them. Are people doing that?
So I have a couple of really good examples.
Okay.
So one was the one when I talked about in this blog post about study mode, I actually gave two examples from my friends here at ASU and how they sort of created these bots, but the amount of effort and training that went into the back end of it, so that they still will go rogue once in a while.
Right.
But for the most
even
part,
more so now that OpenAI have got rid of the models that they were based on.
You have no idea which model you're running anymore, right? Yeah.
But yes.
You could get ChatGPT 1.0. Right. We'll speak with a lisp and stumble every third word. Who knows?
It's been lobotomized of some sort.
But they developed these bots, yes.
But but that's how, to me, one example of how one can do this.
Yes.
The second one is, in fact, just had this conversation this morning. We have the Herberger Young Scholars Academy, which is a school within a school. It's a K-12 school within ASU. And one of the teachers there faculty there who teaches calculus and reached out to me the other day and we were having a chat. And I told him, have you thought about having your students build stuff using these things rather than just use it as a question answer thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And so he sent me this email I got last night. And the kinds of things like even the 2 or 3 hours, the kinds of things students are building, using these tools as a way to build. Like the example I gave of learning Odia software. That's customized completely to me.
Yep.
It's not going to help you learn Odia, trust me, because it's built completely for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's built. I built something. Right? And so I think some of the examples that he shared with me were like, wow. So that to me is it's coming off their curiosity. It's coming out of
but it's their inquiry. It's their construction. It's the expression, right?
But I'm getting vibes of what Lego did when they brought out their robotic systems.
The Mindstorm.
Yes, the Mindstorm stuff. Yeah. They didn't sort of say this is how you do it. They didn't create a playpen which was constricted. They created a playground where you could construct what was in your imagination.
So I would say, if we talk about Dewey, we absolutely have to talk about Seymour Papert.
Okay.
I think he truly understood the way computers, microcomputers, and Lego and so on. So those, like, if you remember the turtle geometries.
I do, yes.
Right?
Yes,
this idea that we can create these micro worlds, which are spaces for expression, which are spaces for learning different things and so on. Yep. I think having that vision is extremely powerful in every aspect of EdTech. In contrast, the vision that we are having is one of control. We have one of surveillance. We have one of monitoring, of efficiency, of administrative
and
ease.
It's the efficiency. So that just those two together, surveillance and efficiency, because Sean and I were talking about this earlier, that the idea that your goal is efficiency and therefore you need to surveil everything and datafy it so you can actually then optimize.
Absolutely. So, I was honestly partly prompted by Audrey Waters' writing, I sat down and I had a moment of sort of thing. It's like, have I wasted my life working in the space of EdTech?
Sure.
Because I'm seeing sort of what's happening with the rhetoric of it, and I'm seeing what's happening in the government.
That's just what happens when you get old.
I know, right? But then I started thinking about it, and I said, I never use an LMS.
Yeah.
No,
you don't.
I don't. I built my own. And in fact, I wrote an essay back
You've always done that.
on becoming a website where I talked about why I don't like LMS.
I should say learning management system.
Yes.
Like Canvas or Blackboard or whatever.
I'd never.
I
must have used it once.
Yeah.
Because it a course in biochemistry looks the same as a course in education.
Yeah. Well,
it's where's me? Where am I?
So I've got to just sort of riff on that. So we use Canvas here, and I build my courses there. But I always build them outside that, and I have to go through the absolute pain of taking this thing that I've crafted and translating it into the system. And even there, I rebel. So
I get it.
Well, it's very interesting. So I mean, I feel like Clarin and I had this conversation with Audrey. I think it was about the LMS because, or maybe it was with Lee. I can't remember.
Lee and Audrey were in the same show.
Yeah, maybe that's the same one
that I broke the system.
That's right, you did break it
because I had to say hello to
I'll put a link in there. Punya Zoom bombed a.
And only 4 could join or something. Only 3, and I was like, the 4th.
No,
I just want to say hello to Audrey. That's it.
Yeah, we're like, go away, Punya, you broke it. But that was again with these learning management systems, trying to create this efficiency for how do you take, and we can go way back, right? Where the transition from traditional in-person, face-to-face courses to the, at the time, the burgeoning field of online learning, going back to late 90s, early 2000s, especially, trying to create these efficiencies, putting these tools in the hands of people who are not web-oriented developers. But then what you end up having, right, is you have this LMS system that is basically the equivalent of handing everybody a digital version of a classroom with all the chairs in a row with predefined constraints.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? So even just using the word gradebook, using the word, which again, to some might be a comfort because if you've done that way, but what it stifles is exactly the type of courses that I think all 3 of us strive to create, which are learning experiences. Yes. They're not, we have to shove them into the confine of a course, but these are highly curated learning experiences that I'm guessing if each one of us were to pull out our syllabi and put it on the table, I could draw for you the arc that they take through this carefully curated experience and how each one of these things, and using all these principles of backwards design and blah, 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 blah. But these are curated experiences that then at some level you feel constrained or have to shoehorn them into these boxed systems.
Yeah, so I never use it. Right? So that was,
Punya is not constrained because he's just a rebel.
But you have the authority. You can just say that, man.
I never ask for permission. I just do it. And then now that I've said it publicly, I'll get that. But the other piece also was that even in my work, I have never ever said, we should all get Google Classroom. It's always been about how individual educators can subvert existing tools for creative purposes for learning. So I feel a little better about my career looking back. Because I've never been...
I'm glad, and you're speaking my language here. But also, I should say, so it's easy for somebody to come on the show and say, I don't use the system or I subvert it. But the reality is you are one of the most respected sort of educational sort of experts around. I mean, you have changed the field, and so this is important stuff.
I agree, and I think one thing I'll say is that I agree in the sense that it's easy for me.
Usually we ask people to leave their ego at the door. I'm so glad you left your humility at the door.
You know what I didn't mean that. I agree, as in that there is a privilege that I have. There's a privilege that I have.
Yes.
So one of the things when I used to work with teachers in Chicago public schools, we used to always talk about is that you have to know the difference between assumptions and rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are lots of assumptions in education.
Yeah.
And there are rules. Don't break the rules because that would get you in trouble, get you fired, especially if you're in Chicago, it could get you fired. But there are so many assumptions that you can tweak and bend and, and work with. And so I think I'm always sort of seeing, okay, what are the assumptions here So yes, when I enter my grades, I have to enter them through Canvas.
Sure. Yes.
Right? Of course.
Yep. But and just to follow that up, in this particular institution, there is nothing codified in the bylaws that say you have to use the LMS.
No, true. And that's our
There are some things you
freedom.
have to do in your syllabus, but it doesn't say use this particular tool.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I will, I'm just going to embarrass you because I'll pull it up because it is true. So, I mean, the level of influence that you do have is incredible. And I know you underplay that a lot.
Right now I sort of
hey, you know what?
Waded into it.
You know what, man? Sometimes you just got to lean into that and say yes. And with that influence, tell them to listen to Modem Futura. But you are listed among the top 2% of the most widely cited scientists worldwide. I mean, that's huge.
You can pay for that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Money
well spent, I guess. But yeah, I mean, number 11 in psychology, number 91 in social sciences, number 62 among top 200 university-based reportings. I mean, it's, so you have this platform as well that your rebellious nature, if you will, I think is good trouble to be stirring up.
I don't even see this as rebellious, to be honest.
Right? No.
This is how each one of us needs to follow our compass.
And I agree, yes.
Right? I mean, you follow it in the way you do. And I'm not
Yep.
saying I need to be Andrew and Andrew needs to be Punya.
That's exactly
right?
it. Yes.
And maybe let me put it this way. Like what you are, the very things that we're describing that you just talked about, the way you design your courses, for example, that is exactly the way someone who is in edtech should be doing it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
What makes it rebellious is when above you has been put a boundary that is imposed by another entity, a district, a unit, or whatever, saying, no, it should conform to this. And your very nature of doing things the way it's supposed to be done is now considered rebellious because it's going outside.
And again, you've got to
bounds.
think about the purpose. So when I was Associate Dean, it was Associate Dean for Student Success, which I loved because my focus was how do we ensure every individual student succeeds? It's not how do we conform to the system, how do we use certain tools. It's about, on a one-to-one basis, how do we find that pathway which will allow them to excel on their own terms? And I think that's what we're getting to.
And, I think there are challenges here as well. I mean, there are things of like, I have to be careful about FERPA. I have to be careful.
Of course.
So that I don't put this information out
those
there.
are the rules.
Those are the rules, right?
And
But
they're
you
for
actually have-
purpose.
but
But
you
within
actually have
that, there is
increased
so
challenges.
much flexibility.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that's where people don't push. I mean, one of the things I always feel is like, you ask a student after they've graduated 5 years from college and you ask them like, which professors or classes do you remember?
And they say, "Who are you?"
Right? And so
How'd you get this email?
But yes, that's what sticks.
I mean, if I ask my kids,
Yes,
what do you remember? And they're like, oh, this class, like 3 things.
Yep.
3 things, 4 years, I don't know how many hundreds of credits, 3 classes, right?
Yeah.
And so I always feel like I want to be that professor who they remember
same
5
here.
years from now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think all of us want to be that.
Yep.
Will we be? No. But unless we aspire
But it's an aspiration.
for that.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
part of that aspiration is that I want to be different. And if I want my class to be different, but my online class looks exactly the same as every other class,
Yes.
how can that stand out? How can that intersection between, because part of what going to a class, at least in higher ed for sure, is our role is modeling for our students what it means to have a relationship with a discipline.
So let me ask you this. Is your sense that this becomes even more important in higher education? And I ask because, of course, if you're in K through 12, there are certain things you need to do. There's a learning sort of arc where every student needs to sort of follow at least some of that arc. Do you feel there's more freedom in higher education? Or do you think that this is something that extends throughout the educational sort of sphere?
I think in sort of up till middle school, I think what you are modeling for your kids, because you could be teaching any subject and so on, is a sense of curiosity, a sense of openness, a sense of willingness to play and learn, and just the general value of doing that.
Yep.
I think by the time you get to high school and some of the more technical classes, you start getting into what I was talking about, which is what does it mean to have a relationship with the field?
Yes. Yep.
Right. But when you come to higher ed, oh my God, that is maybe the single most important thing you may be doing. Apart from conveying content, you are showing what it means to be an engaged intellectual with a set of ideas, whether the ideas may be how science fiction and futures thinking can combine. How do we think about what it means to be human?
And I ask because I always have this sort of pit that I feel I'm going to fall into by using anecdote. But I look at my own sort of educational history, which is incredibly dangerous. But I think through sort of university where I was doing physics, I was there because I was enthralled to physics. I wanted the fire hose and the experience. I just sucked it up. I didn't want somebody gamifying. I didn't want them slowing things down. I didn't want fancy videos. I wanted the stuff, and I wanted the stuff from the professors who were equally excited about it. And that's what stuck with me.
Yeah, and again, not to ding gamifying. I mean,
those are useful mechanisms.
I mean, we might be falling into the same trap of saying, "Oh, this worked for me, so it's going to work for everybody."
Right.
What I am saying is, give students the freedom to learn in the ways that they find productive, and give faculty and educators the freedom to teach in the way that is best for them
and for their students. Yes,
right.
Yes,
and I think then you'll find it will be incredibly both gratifying and powerful and effective.
Yeah.
And so because I want to bring this back to AI and especially agentic AI, but what I love about this perspective in this conversation is when you start with the students and the playground and the opportunities, you're not starting with AI. So I'm guessing from what you're saying, you could have the most amazing class where you don't even talk about or touch artificial intelligence.
Or
you could. Yes, yes. But you bring it in where it actually enhances the learning.
Sure.
Yes.
And I can see, just like the internet.
Yes.
I can see every context. So for instance, when, a lot of people would be like, shut your laptop down. My thing was, you're going to have your laptop open or your phone, you're going to be distracted. So my job is to make it such that you can use that productively. So it would be like as we are discussing something in class and a book is mentioned, the first person
Did you ever have those boilerplate syllabi or syllabuses which actually had that clause in saying no electronic devices allowed in class? That was the first thing I used to strum out of all of my syllabuses.
Yeah. Yes. But the thing is, is it a challenge for educators? Yes. But can we meet that challenge? Absolutely.
Yep.
Right. And so I think the whole issue of should we use X or Y depends on the context.
That's right. Yeah. It's the wrong question. Yes.
Yeah, right. Because it sits there in the fabric, right? Depending on, and I will say too, I'll throw this out in case we have any of our instructional design friends out there being like, well, they're hating on all the LMS. There is a tension too, which I can see also because one trap is to assume every faculty would take the care that we do, which we know is not the case. Yes, and so there is this, and it's a difficult balance in some ways because there is a benefit in some situation to have the consistency of things feel like from the student perspective of when you have, let's say you're taking 5 courses, if each one of them is on a different platform, that's 5 different platforms you need to learn the ropes of and how to use and where the nuances of those are. And so there is a piece of that. But I think that's the element is here is like, having that structure, but then when you're ready to move away from it for an intentional purpose to have that flexibility to do that.
So here is my take on this. I completely agree with you. And I've in fact have had students push back and say, why do we have this stupid interface that you designed? It's not a great interface.
It's not Punya's class again.
It's idiosyncratic and whatever.
Yep.
I think that the way we have defined these systems like learning management systems, the emphasis is on management.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Imagine if we had created a space where as a teacher, you could drag and drop and pull down menus and change pictures and do, add media as you wanted so that the front page wouldn't be this horrible login with a menu on the left. And,
I know. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a completely feasible world.
Right. Yes. Yep.
We're not asking for much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it lets me customize it for how I want my
But it
class
also
to feel.
signals to your students, if you have a uniform front page which is boring, what's it tell your students?
Yeah.
This is a conventional, boring class.
And don't pay attention to this.
Yes.
It becomes wallpaper.
Or this is one more of those things that we need to check off. To be honest, the class that I taught last semester, I had some students who were resisting the fact that they were being given this opportunity to do whatever in the creativity and AI space, right?
Yeah.
Because they were like, tell us what you want, and we'll do it, and the class will be done.
What's the prescription here?
How'd you get an A?
Yeah.
There were others who were like, wow, this is crazy. Let's do something different, right?
Yeah.
And so you have all of those. But that message, and I had to keep repeating that message till they actually recognize that, he actually means it.
Right. Yep.
Because we have conditioned things in such a way that it's like, do the following and you will get a grade.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, you want a grade? Here's a grade.
Yep.
Like,
So then, and actually your class is a great example because it was a class where you encourage students to explore, experiment, sort of build their own stuff. And now you get to this question of agentic AI, which we've talked about this before. It's the buzzword.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be talking about agentic AI in education. I still have no idea what that means. But then how does this fit in if really we're supposed to be starting with what we want to achieve in this class, and then how do we sort of pull in the things that are going to allow us to?
Somebody help me understand. So my understanding of agent software, all AI agents is like there's a task you need to get done.
Yes.
And you can ask this girl to do it.
And it goes away and does it. It checks the website, it creates the spreadsheet, it looks at your calendar or whatever.
Books your air ticket, shops
Yep.
for you. And
you give it
your credit card down.
Yeah, you give it access to the things you're willing to completely have turned upside down and inside out.
Yeah.
Like your email, which I can't imagine people doing that. But
so the question for me is, what aspect of education
are you going to outsource?
Do we outsource?
Yes. Yeah.
Like what about learning do you outsource?
Yeah.
Well,
right? I mean,
I struggle.
I mean, when it's
learning is an
I'm trying to find some frists on here so we can have this engaged conversation.
So my question is let's say if we create an agentic AI for food.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got to eat. The agent can't eat your food.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Well, you know what I mean? So you have to learn.
I think that's a really good analogy.
So,
yes.
So Punya, so building off that, right? So because this is how I was thinking about it. So I like the food analogy because it's like, right, there are mechanisms to feed you.
Yes.
They can put it through your veins and they can put it down a tube and all this kind of stuff, but they've removed the joy.
Not just the joy, the taste
the reason why
like how many times am I eating thinking like if I don't eat today, I'm going to die.
Yeah,
I'm eating
it's a little beep 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 on your app, and it says take pill Y.
Theoretically, I know if I don't eat enough, I'm going to die.
The house robot will just come up to you and be like, "It's time for your injection," and then you're done.
Right. But so that's the thing. Like, what's agentic? What part of learning?
The thing that bothers me the most about this phrasing of like, oh, we're gonna fix, enhance, make better education through this agentic AI. The problem I see, like the problem I see unfolding is you have again this mechanized experience that is like, okay, well, if we're gonna operationalize for efficiencies, we'll counteract that with an agentic AI to give you, sure, if I need to tick these 12 boxes that are meaningless or something, here's an agent that'll do that for me. And it's like you have this crap handling at the top, and underneath that, what shakes out is then the real learning of the people actually learning from. It's like.
So I'm going to try and be the counter case here because I feel as if we need.
I'm genuinely curious, right? I mean, I'm not just saying.
So I struggle, but I also think I wonder whether it's a terminology thing. So certainly, I've heard people talking about learning environments where an AI can actually sort of craft a personalized learning environment, and I'm not quite sure I understand the agent side of it, but certainly there is this thing. Khan Academy do it with Carmigo, where you put a student in a learning environment, and what they get from the AI is responsive to how they're learning, sort of where there are gaps, and sort of how they can go on to the next level. I don't know whether that's agentic AI or not, and even
that's been around forever. Right, intelligent tutoring systems.
Right,
we've had them for 50, 30 years.
Right,
I mean, some better than others, for sure.
And of course, we can do more now as we can do more now.
But also we can have more things problems that can occur because traditional intelligent tutoring systems were sort of the good old fashioned AI, top down knowledge structures, so on. They would never give you the wrong answer, but they were also brittle.
Right.
In the sense they couldn't step out of their zone. What we have is the reverse now. This guy is completely willing to step out of his zone.
Right.
It's like no problem.
Right.
But it can also then goof up. So there's the tension between the traditional intelligent tutoring and so on.
That's right.
So I don't know. To me, that's not agentic AI. Agent for me is like this little guy with a beret and a thing, and
unless you take it to the next level, and this comes back to the surveillance thing. So, and this is a hypothetical, but these are systems that people are absolutely trying to build. The systems that learn everything they can about you. They learn about your interests, your preferences, your abilities, your lack of abilities, what you've been doing over the last few years, where you've gone, who your friends are, what you browse online, and they use that to create a learning profile where the agent decides, and I guess this is where the agent comes in. The agent decides what your learning pathway should be, and it tries to keep you on that pathway. Right. So that is something that people are trying to build. But even as I describe it, that scares the life out of me.
And I think it should. Yes. I mean, because when you say that, I have a very cynical sort of response to that. Is I'm like, what I would question is how do they know they need that? First of all, assuming the goal is even remotely obtainable under the current and near current technological capabilities. One is, how do they know what data they really need from that? I think, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is we'll take it all, and what we don't need, don't worry, we'll sell it. I mean, this is happening at a massive scale anyway. And so there's a part of me that is like, part of this narrative is so false in the sense that do these engineers actually understand what is necessary or need? How would we craft this? That should be a completely transparent conversation and discussion and roadmap, right?
Especially with young kids.
But here's the thing, though. I think it's already happening.
Right.
now that you described it that way,
Yeah.
Right.
Agentic
Give us
AI
everything.
has been happening for the last 10 years, 15 years.
Right.
Except it's not happening in classrooms.
Right, yes.
But
It's
what
elsewhere.
else do you think Facebook and Instagram and
Of
all
course,
of those?
but I think this is what
People
they're
are
learning
learning
from.
on those
Yes,
systems. More
they're
people
looking
know
at
from-
learning systems and saying, why can't we do this with education? So instead of trying to persuade you to buy that widget on Amazon, they're trying to persuade you to follow a certain pathway in your learning.
No, I mean,
Yes.
so my point is that,
Yeah.
Agentic AI, if
Yeah.
that's the way we describe it,
Yeah.
is already
And
here.
I don't know, I would love for somebody to disabuse me of this. And maybe there is something else here, but
I mean,
yeah.
what are the statistics? Like some strangely large number of people get their science knowledge from TikTok.
Oh
Right,
yeah,
right,
it's huge.
yes,
right?
I
Yeah,
know,
it's
yes,
terrifying.
So
Yep.
that's agentic AI.
I guess, yeah.
So they are learning through data that's been collected about them in order to
Actually, I hadn't thought about that because, of course, the underlying algorithms try and work
Yeah.
out sort of what it is you're going to respond to.
Exactly.
So it's a
agentic AI is
reinforcement learning
already
system.
Here.
Yes,
it is a
yes,
reinforcement learning system.
Yeah.
It is behaviorism.
Yep.
So, we have always in graduate school, when you're in education, the first thing we're like, behaviorism, bad people, wrong, whatever.
yeah.
It's not wrong.
Yep, right.
It's just once you put it at a scale
I-
where
yeah.
millions of data
so
points people.
so you can see I'm trying to work through this seriously in real
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
thinking
No, me
where
too.
are the
Yeah.
benefits? So
I'm just getting wound up over here.
Right, but here's another argument that I can imagine people making, because you see this rhetoric. It's not even rhetoric; it's a narrative all the time. We have a lack of people who have expertise in STEM subjects, so engineers, scientists. We feel that we need, and I'm channeling other people. We feel we need more people in society with certain skills, certain thinking abilities, and the argument goes, and I'm not trying to buy into this, but the argument goes that the current educational system and the way we educate students isn't meeting the need. Therefore, we need AI and agentic AI to nudge them along pathways which will give people in society the skills that we think they need.
Well, there's the headline from, what is it, New York Times or Washington Post from yesterday about people doing computer science and not getting any jobs.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
Yep.
Because the world has changed.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Which
Yeah.
was one of the premier STEM fields,
Yeah.
right? Was
But this comes back to basic sort of learning. You don't teach for the job, apart from in very specific situations. You teach people the skills and the understanding and the curiosity which will allow them to carve their own way out.
Yeah. I'm going back to John Dewey.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, this is exactly, and we've used this analogy before too, of like the train engineering problem is, instead of trying to operationalize, make more efficient, whatever, it's focused on nurturing those four natural impulses. You can set a goal. You can say like, hey, there's a national goal, and we can not just focus on the US. There's a national goal. We need more people in the STEM fields. Okay. Nurture those four natural impulses, make learning something that people feel as an identity, not as something they're forced to go through.
Yep.
Let their passions dictate and their own personal inquiry dictate where they go. And you will, over time, you will get the people who want to be there, as opposed to the people that are essentially force-fed that job, or told this is the way you're going to go, and then you have people who are in these careers or in these pathways that hate it.
It's incredibly utilitarian. It's like somebody has decided that in 10 years' time there is a coda-shaped hole in society.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not interested in people; they're interested in filling the hole. Therefore, we're going to manufacture a person to fit that hole. And for what end? So the economy is better. So politically, we have a certain sort of society.
No, and I love this piece that you said, Sean, about like identity and belonging, because I look at myself, like 4 years of engineering school. I never called myself an engineer. 5 weeks or 3 months, let's say, in design school.
You call yourself?
I called myself a designer.
Right. And why? Yes.
Because for
it
once,
fit?
because it fit.
Right. Yes.
And I still
You put that jacket on and you're like,
And I'm
I look
all
good.
these things that I've been doing, they work. But it was also partly by design, in the sense of by the way the curriculum was designed and why the professors would talk to us. Our professors would never. So in engineering, nobody ever said, "You engineers." It would be like, "You have to learn this to become an engineer." In design school, from day one,
You're a designer.
there was not just that. There was always looking down on others. which is like, we designers know. Right? So there was this, I was thinking back later, I said, that's a really smart move. Like you just make an in-group within a week.
Right.
Within a week, we were all like, we designers, we don't know squat. We don't know anything.
Cliques and elitism works every time.
It works every time. And we're like, we see the world differently.
Right.
Because we see a crack and we see a letter
But
form.
I'm laughing, but I'm exactly the same.
No,
So
for
my
sure.
identity is reversed. So I've spent the last, 20 or so years working in the social sciences, in sort of the biological sciences, in sort of occupational health and a whole bunch of other areas. I call myself a physicist because that was my first love. That's my identity.
Yeah. And for me, it's a designer. I mean,
Yes.
that's who I see myself as. And so I think that idea of belonging, of finding that, so which is why, so I don't think I think there can be a role for agentic AI.
Yes. Yeah.
But again, it comes back to autonomy, agency.
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve?
What are you trying to achieve? And is it being driven by the
Yeah.
needs of the educator, of the student, of the learner?
So let me flip this one more time. So I'm trying really hard here.
Yeah, I know.
I'm now
impressed.
I'm channeling certain sort of sci-fi sort of tropes. But imagine there was a personal AI whose sole goal was to help you find your passion and your pathway. And the agent part of it was empowering you to be you.
So like a hype version of the digital primer.
Yeah,
Kinda?
Yeah. So the Neil Stephenson's digital primer is a little bit sort of dodgy, but this idea that you have your lifelong sort of personal AI assistant.
But one so many people today are using as like their roadmap for how they're thinking about these tools.
I asked this because, of course, this is a vision that's driving a lot of people, and it on the surface it feels really exciting. What if we can give every kid that surrogate parent, teacher, mentor, whatever, so they become much better than they already are? Apart from the fact that even as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, who decides the coding in there? So where the nudges are.
Right.
What happens when you replace all these human connections with a machine? And are we still just talking about optimization? And what are we optimizing for?
So the question that I would ask in that one, I'm actually on board with everything till you used one word, which is, that we have this thing, it'll be with you for your life, companion, help you to become better.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the danger.
What does that mean? Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
But if you say in the process of becoming,
yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yes. Yes.
Because these tools and technologies, the fact that we can sit here and have this conversation, we can share it with
now
wider
this is
audience.
not a learning tool in the educational sense.
No,
this is a life tool.
Of becoming.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we are
yes.
always in a process of becoming.
Yes.
It's when we say become better, become faster, then somebody else
There's
is
a value judgment.
Then there is a
Yeah.
metric, there is a value.
Yeah.
While just the act of becoming is a beautiful thing. We
Yes,
unfold.
yes.
Our lives unfold. Our personalities are, all of it. That's what friends are for. That's what family is for. That's for colleagues who, reviewer number 2 is for.
Right.
They have a role to play.
Right.
In that
You're
process.
number
Yes,
two.
that process of becoming.
Right.
And so I love this framing.
The only word I would sort of pluck out from there.
Yeah.
Would be
But
the
if you
word
had
better.
agentic AI that helps you towards your pathway of becoming.
And you don't know what it is going to be.
Yeah.
And there's the beauty of finding out.
Yeah.
And the
But that
surprise
goes
in
so
it.
far beyond education and so
Right.
far beyond what a lot of these companies are trying to build.
Exactly. And that's what education is about.
Right.
It is about
Becoming.
Yep.
It's never about what
Becoming
you become.
something. Yes.
Because then what?
Right.
Yeah. And you're,
Then what?
then, you're never done.
Right. I know. Yeah.
Did I tell you about this YouTube video? I don't think
You retire and then,
I'm 12 years old. I'm done.
I'm done.
Right, yes.
I've become. I'm done.
This is like
Right.
my son calling up after Michigan won the national thing. Like, of course, he couldn't speak for 24 hours because he had screamed and shouted so much. He's like, Papa, I can now die happy. I'm like, dude,
Sorry,
you're
how old is he?
27.
Right.
This is the peak that your team,
It's all
not even
downhill.
you were not even on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We say we won the championship.
Yeah,
as if you,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, this idea of becoming, of an unfolding is so much of a more enriching way.
No, I love this
thinking
actually.
about learning.
Maybe we have found the core of how agentic AI might actually work within society.
And I think all technologies have always done that.
Yes.
Books have done that. Like One way of thinking about it is like, oh my God, I took my thinking and I got it from a book. Of course, books have changed my life.
Yeah, but I love that example. So I read a lot of fiction. I don't like nonfiction because I feel it constrains me. But reading is, you're right, a part of becoming. Because you read
writing.
a novel, it doesn't tell you what to think or how to be. It opens up possibilities.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yes.
And you have that. I mean, we can extend that too. I mean, that's what the beauty of the role art plays too. Of just, again, you come to some object, could be a painting, could be digital, could be physical, and you may have a reaction to that changes everything. It could change nothing. It could change everything. Sure. And that's what you can't. And I would come back to the agentic piece. One of the issues that I have with the tools and the organizations at present that are pushing these things, of course, is for this to be something I think that could be legitimately used in the process of becoming, is these things have got to be transparent as best they can be,
right?
But they also have to be personal, on device, localized. These cannot also, because I think you had mentioned it, I think when, as a kind of a counterpoint, when we're like, but all this information about creating these idealized individual tutors is also the absolute pinnacle of surveillance. Yeah. Because again, all that information they know about you, the dark side of that question then is, well, then who gets to use that and to what means? And we know with any technology that's created, it's always going to have layers of, biases and unintended consequences. And whoever, even if it wasn't intended, will have put their thumb on the scale, so to speak. And which is normal. That's inherent in creating human things. The problem is when those are intentionally obfuscated or hidden or even nefarious in those ways and sold as something else or sold as this benefit, that people then unintentionally give these things over and then are manipulated. And so for me, for these agentic tools, if we really, if people want to get really serious about the conversation of agentic AIs as companions, I think right along with that conversation has to be
deal with that data and data leakage.
And how do you, you see these little slivers of hope with people releasing open models and things like that.
Has to go way, way beyond that.
It has to go beyond that, but that's a step in the right direction, in the sense that once we can understand how to make this compute, the challenge is then how do we put that compute in a way that the individual could be the sole arbiter of what that system does, learns, and knows.
And here's something that bothers me.
And a kill switch, honestly.
Right, but here's something that bothers me even more with this, and it's a huge challenge. So you can begin to understand how that might work, especially that transparency and that ownership, if you're in, say, your 20s, 30s, 40s. What happens when we apply that through K through 6 to 10? What happens when you take that child at sort of 5, 6 years old and already everything about them is in the hands of somebody else?
Why do you think Google released 30 plus AI tools over the 4th of July weekend, default unlocked?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you think OpenAI is making this huge push for education? Because that's where you get the data from very early on.
Oh, sure.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, let's not have any illusions about that.
So then people have to realize that we're building systems where their children are part of the system. Right. They are a cog in the system providing data.
But I mean, aren't we doing the same?
As educators,
as individuals.
As individuals,
right? We are. So the question then becomes, to me, it's like right now, like sometimes, like my wife will come or somebody will come and say, "Oh, this got hacked." But like if somebody wants to know my password, they can figure it out.
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. It's not that simple, but it's simple enough.
Yes.
Right, and if they crack one, chances are they'll crack 3 more. Right. So
we've got to have a conversation about sort of password privacy.
Monkey
here.
1, Monkey 2, Monkey 3.
But I'm not unique in that.
I know.
Of course not.
Okay. Yes, right. So now I know I'm living in a world where this technology can be used to pinpoint me in ways that previously in the public space I couldn't.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. That's a given. Now, I just have to learn to live with that.
Yep.
So like I say, if you were a person who never used social media in your life, it doesn't matter at some level because you're living in a world that's been transformed by social media.
That's right. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So now let's take that. The question then becomes, what kind of choices can we make in that space so that I can be fully in this process of becoming, of me without, can I even figure that out? I don't know. But I think those are the kinds of questions we need to be asking.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of questions which I can grasp. I can't grasp policy questions because they seem so big to me.
Right.
And there are so many
but
cases.
it comes down to you work with what you can change, what you have some agency over, to use that in a very human term.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny too. I mean, this is just brought back a memory. I used to, long time ago, I used to do these like recruiting talks, right, to high schools and stuff to get them to come to like a media program and all this kind of stuff. And it would be funny because one of the things I would kind of start with is this thing I would ask students as a quick, just hands raised survey of how much people, who has a Gmail account, who has a, this is, so hands go up. I'm like, well, how much are you paying for that? And you could hear the snickers in the room. They're like, this idiot doesn't know it's free. And so eventually someone would always say that, this was the bait, right? Then someone would say, it's free. We don't pay anything for that. And I'm like, you don't. And then, of course, it was just like, pull the curtain back. And it's like, what you're paying with, of course, is your data, right? And all your information and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, have you ever, even at this is going back more than a decade now, but it's like, even at that time, it's like, do you understand the transaction that you have engaged? Because the whole thing is not to say that that's bad. It's not to put a value on it of bad or good, because that's up to the individual to decide.
Sure, yes.
But the challenge with all of these things is when the actual cost of that transaction is buried or again intentionally hidden from you, so that you
and the
don't
consequences
know.
of that
and the
as well.
consequences,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So because the way you'd always get these 18-year-olds or whatever to suddenly pay attention is you're like, well, how much would it be worth to you to know every website you've been to in the last 48 hours, the last week, the last month, and then and then give that to your parent or guardian.
Right.
Like, what would you do how much is it?
Come out, delete.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you could see the look on people's faces all of a sudden. We were like, and how much would that be worth to you? And how much would you pay? Like now there's now you feel the cost. And it's just, but again, the whole point was to drive home this idea of the idea here is to be, especially in that area, which now is AI has come into that space, is to be informed about these trade-offs, these concepts, what is the values. And especially as we continue to move into these AI tools and systems, and the fact that they're popping up in everything else as well, whether they are through API calls that you're using some platform like Microsoft Word, and now all of a sudden you've got Copilot in there, whether you wanted it or not.
Yes.
And so you are engaging in these systems and in these tools, even in many cases, never knowing that you've given permission to do that, because they've kind of come in through a side or a back door or whatever. And it's a big issue.
And I think that's the bigger conversation. How do you help people sort of both make sense of that, but also have the ability to make choices?
Yeah. And we are always making this compromise.
Right.
Our existence on the planet means we have a carbon footprint. We have
that's it.
Resources
which is where it's
up.
not right or wrong. But there needs to be some sense of understanding.
It's the awareness of it.
It's really funny that we ended up here, because this is a few weeks ago. I was like, all these talk about ethics and AI use and for education. I'm like, there are so many of these. I'm going to sit down and I'm trying to make a table.
Yes.
And I worked really, it was kind of fun building. And so Mary Heath, one of my friends in Loyola, and I are actually writing a paper on this, where we are sort of just going from like the climate and environmental impact all the way down to data and to the anthropomorphized. It's like here is the list of things. If you're comfortable with them in some way or the other, go use it.
Well, it's like literacy, right? How many literacies can you have, right? Like at some level, it becomes so overwhelming.
Yeah. So we were like, let's just try to map it out, so that, because just for selfish reasons,
right?
It started not from like writing a paper as much just from like, what am I working with?
Right. Yes.
And again, I know that the T-shirt I wear might have been some child labor in Bangladesh or whatever. And I've learned to live with that.
Right.
But I do know.
Because you live in a complex system.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, right. I mean, to that extension too. I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. It's like, before we start, it's like you just take a snapshot and you're like, okay, there is a computer here that contains rare earth metals. And where did those come from? And, the clothing you wear and, the shoes who glued the shoes you're wearing?
We are all compromised. The question is sort of, how do you actually sort of work out what you can live with and what you can't?
Exactly. Yeah.
But then bringing that back to agentic AI in education, that also brings in all these compromises. And then the question is, well, who is making those decisions?
So which is why I always come back to this. I think I'm so glad that we ended up on that becoming thing. It was not pre-planned, but I think it's something that really
that's great.
resonated. Like, it's something I think I believe in, but I had not articulated it that way. So that was great.
Yeah.
But I think that if you think about these agentic AI as allowing you as a learner to become and grow in ways not to lead you to X, but rather to help you think through and figure out what it is that you want.
Yes.
I think that's great. I mean, that's a very positive way of thinking.
That is the challenge for higher education through K through 12, through anybody else that is bringing this into people's lives. How do you build AI agents and systems that enable people to become, not enable people to become X, Y, or Z?
Right. Enable people to become. Love that. Yeah. That's cool.
That's a great place to end.
That's a good show title too. I don't know. We can end with this too. So while we were talking about all these agentic things, I had ChatGPT 5 something or other in agent mode. I said, make me a course on using Final Cut Pro, edit like a basic thing of editing. And again, the difference here of what it spit out, which you look at these and you're like, yep, these are all it's lifted right out of the manual, and these are very dry, just cut things. What's not in here that you won't find is, of course, as I'm reading through it, it's like how to do magnetic timeline concept, basic editing actions. But there's no talk in here about the actual art of making a film. So something as basic, right? So this is something you would learn, in a first level course when you get to the timeline editing is the difference between a J and an L cut, right? So how do you use audio independent of the video, and when do you cut back and forth between things? Doing that allows you to start crafting the soul of what you're watching rather than it just being this transactional thing, because those are those edits that, it's just, so it is interesting, just as proof of what we're talking about too. Transactional information, great.
It's how do you find the human rather than just the transactional, just the optimization.
Yep, that's it. And so, doing this, you're not becoming anything.
So AI, agentic or otherwise, has potential, but it's still got a way to go.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think if we ask the right questions of it, right?
Right.
I think about it.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I will I will stuff the show notes with as many of the links as the things we talked about, including our dear old friend, John Dewey. I'll put a link to the modem stuff.
I'll send you a link to this thing I wrote on becoming a website.
Yes, do that.
Which was all about the tension of not using an LLM.
Interesting. No, I would love to read that.
LMS.
Yes.
And choosing to build and it was written like 2004 or 5 or something. It was published in First Monday back in the day. And it's one I went back to, and I'm like, but that's the ideology, and like some of the stuff is dated because of the technology.
Sure.
But the commitments in it.
But that time frame would have been peak Web 2.0, which was the real rise of tools like a Canvas and things like that. Because
this is a Blackboard, I think. Was
Blackboard or Angel? Was it Angel?
Yeah, I don't know.
Bringing back memories of.
It was a fun essay to write.
LMS is long ago. Moodle, all these things.
Looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Like I said, it's a little dated, but I felt good rereading it because it's like I still hold on to certain things, and it's just great.
That's right. You can run your pirate flag as.
That's good.
Awesome. Well, Punya, thank you so much for coming back. Andrew, always a pleasure.
Same here.
Can I make a plug for my class?
Yeah, do so.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just doing mental math real quick here. This will go out in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Is that too late?
Yeah.
You could do a plug anyway. I can snip it and
you could. I would say you can do a FOMO plug. Say, you've just missed out.
If you're hearing this, you lose. Do a plug anyway.
That I've been teaching forever, and you've actually been in that.
Yes.
Called Education by Design. So that sort of brings together both pieces of my.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Both pieces of my identity, but brings it's me. That class is me, and so this semester, I realized that I'm sort of done with chatbots. Like I'm like, okay, we can make chatbots, and and we can put knowledge behind it and RAG and all of that. Okay,
right.
But what's been really powerful, and particularly around these experiences I've had of building stuff using AI, whether it's the ODL learning app.
And I've been watching you do the web apps and
the
things.
Fourier transformation.
Yes, I know, which is beautiful.
Good.
Yes,
it's beautiful.
Yep.
And I learned something about Fourier transformations.
Yep.
I have a delightful one on the unit circle and sine waves, cos waves, Pythagorean theorem. Just amazing little things that I could create.
Yes.
And so this whole class is going to be around building things, educational things using AI rather than just taking AI as is.
Your students on the route to becoming through building.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Yeah,
but I'm really excited.
Very cool.
Great.
I need to just now get my syllabus.
I just turned mine in. So
it'll happen. It'll happen. But I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. This has been an awesome conversation as usual. This is what happens. Fireworks go off when Punya joins us.
I know,
we can't help it.
It's so much fun. We need some beer here.
Hey, you can't see what's in this. You can't tell what's in here.
No, you're on campus, shortly.
Fantastic.
Until next time.
Next time. We'll see
you so much. Thank you for calling me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of Modem Futura.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Demodulating signal.
Modem Futura is a production of the Future of Being Human initiative at Arizona State University. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. To learn more about the Future of Being Human initiative and all of our other projects, please visit us on the web at futureofbeinghuman.asu.edu.
End transmission.